Chushim Ben Dan, Seeing an Intolerable Situation for What It Is, by Rabbi Frand. Vayechi, Yaakov lives in Egypt for 17 years to the age of 147. Before he dies, he summons Yosef and makes him swear that he will bury him in the land of Israel. A short while later, Yosef is told that his father is sick. He takes his two sons to Yaakov for a blessing. Yaakov blesses Yosef, then his two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim, will be considered tribes in their own right. He then blesses the boys, but places his right hand on Ephraim's head, though he is the younger. Yosef tries to correct his father, but Yaakov explains that the younger son will become greater than the elder. Yaakov gives Yosef an additional portion in the land of Israel, the city of Shechem. Yaakov summons all of his sons and blesses them, each with their own unique strengths and weaknesses. He once again instructs all of them to bury him in the land of Israel in the cave of Machpelah. As he concludes his instruction to his sons, he draws his feet into the bed, breathes his last, and is gathered unto his people. Yosef instructs the court physicians to embalm Yaakov, and all of Egypt mourns him for 70 days. He then requests permission from Paro to go and bury his father. Paro allows him to go, and he and his brothers, accompanied by all of the palace courtiers, go to bury Yaakov. Upon returning to Egypt, the brothers fear that Yosef still bears a grudge against them. They therefore send a message to Yosef that their father had instructed him to forgive them. They present themselves to Yosef, and he reassures them that he will provide for them and that they have nothing to fear. Yosef lives to the age of 110 and lives to see his great-grandsons. Before he dies, he makes his family swear that they will eventually bury him, that they will eventually bring him to the land of Israel for burial. When he dies, he is embalmed and placed in a coffin in Egypt. The Talmud tells us, Sota, page 13a, that when the brothers arrived at the Ma'arat HaMachpelah, cave of Machpelah, in Hebron, to bury Yaakov, Esau came and protested. There was one remaining plot in the burial cave. The previous burial plots were used for Adam, Chava, Avraham, Sarah, Yitzhak, Rivka, and Leah. Esau claimed the remaining plot belonged to him. The sons of Yaakov responded that Esau forfeited his right to the plot when he sold the birthright. Esau's counterclaimed, however, that he only sold the double portion to which a firstborn was entitled. However, nowhere in the sale was it implicit that he was selling his own burial plot. The brothers responded that it was included in the sale. Esau demanded that they produce the document of sale. The brothers claimed that they did have the document, but that they had left it in Egypt. Esau insisted on delaying the burial until the brothers produced this deed of sale. Who were the brothers going to send back to Egypt? This was before the days of DHL and Federal Express. They sent Naphtali, who was well known as the speediest runner among the brothers. Chushim Ben Dan, the son of Dan, who was deaf, inquired from someone about the delay and argument in the midst of the burial of his grandfather. Chushim was astounded when he was told what was happening. Until Naphtali returns from Egypt, my grandfather should lie over there in disgrace. Chushim took a club and hit Esau over the head and killed him. The Talmud concludes that this was in fulfillment of Rivka's question, why should I lose both of you on one day? Bereshit, chapter 27, verse 45. This is an amazing passage. Out of Yaakov's 12 fine and upstanding children, and out of all the wonderful grandchildren, why was it that only Chushim Ben Dan was sensitive to the intolerable nature of the situation? And why did the Talmud emphasize the fact that Chushim was deaf? The Mir Rosh Yeshiva, Rav Chaim Shmuel Levin, Zekat Badak L'Bracha, explains that this Gemara teaches us a remarkable fact of life. The difference between Chushim and the other children and grandchildren was that the others, unfortunately, became accustomed to the idea that their father would lie there in disgrace until Naphtali returned from Egypt. Why? The answer is that it started gradually. First there was a claim, then there was a counterclaim. Next came another counter-argument, etc. Everyone else became accustomed to the idea of the negotiations without stopping to think that the scene was a world-class offense to the honor of Yaakov. Since they all had time to adjust to this slowly developing situation, they gradually became used to the idea. However, Chushim was deaf and was not involved in the whole dialogue. When Chushim asked what was happening, he had not had the time to adjust. All of a sudden, he was hit by the whole terrible travesty of the situation in a single instant, as if he was hit by a load of bricks. Chushim, thank God, did not have time to adjust. We learn from here a powerful insight into human nature. Human beings can become accustomed to anything. This phenomenon is both a blessing and a curse. People could not live without the ability to adjust. Sometimes we find ourselves in terrible situations and we cannot imagine how we will survive. But, thank God, people are adaptable and resilient. However, the terrible downside of this phenomenon is that we can become accustomed to anything. To murder, to violence, to anything. The first time a soldier kills in war, he is terribly destroyed. But when one kills for long enough and sees death so often, even that can be accommodated. The lesson is that there are times when a person must say, I'm not supposed to become accustomed to this. I should always react with disgust and revulsion to certain situations. Many students attend my shir class as their last stop in the yeshiva. After my shir, they often go out into the world of their professions. I often meet former students a year or two later and inquire, so, how are things going? They sometimes respond, terrible. I can't take the office. I can't take the dirt. I can't take the lewd language. I can't take the innuendos. I can't take any of it. I respond to them with a blessing. You should always feel like that, because if you become accustomed to it, that is bad. There are some situations in life to which we must always react with disgust. The acceptance of an intolerable situation is itself the start of the problem. Editor's note. Last year, several people asked why Chushim was justified in his act of killing Esau. No one even criticized Chushim after he killed Esau, and he did not have to stand trial for murder. Chushim was right, although from a superficial glance, we may not understand why. In response to this question, Rabbi Frand offered an explanation of why Chushim was right. The Ramban on Pashas Vayishlach states that it was permitted for Shimon, and Levi to kill the people of Shechem because they certainly were in violation of at least some of the Sheva Mitzvot B'nai Noach, the 7 laws commanded to Noach and his descendants, which are basic laws to sustain society. Avodah Zarah, or idol worship, Gezel, stealing, and perhaps Gilui Arayos, sexual immorality. As such, they were all Chayav Nisa, deserving of death. Perhaps this was the case by Chushim and Esau. We know from Chazal that Esau was in violation of several of the Sheva Mitzvot, including murder. As such, Esau was Chayav Nisa, and should have been convicted by Chushim himself. Also, it could be that the very fact that Esau did not let them bury Yaakov in a plot that he had sold constituted an act of Gezel, and as such, Esau was chayav for that alone. According